Yo, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will be breaking down the full monthly report, highlighting all of the need-to-know information and delving further into what it all means. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you all so much for the support. Cannot do this without you guys. It is very much appreciated. So, I have already covered the ships and vehicles section in a separate video, which I will not be including in this breakdown. To learn more about all of the progress on vehicles, do check the description below. I will link that video there. Plus, I have also broken down in a lot more detail all of the work from the core gameplay team, but I will also be including that segment in this video, but in a little less detail. So if you want more of the information and a detailed look at all of the gameplay features being worked on now, check the link below to that video, but I will cover the basics here. Now this is going to be a pretty long video, I suspect, as there was a lot of detail going on, a lot of information revealed. So as usual, get a drink, get a snack, settle in, and let's begin. Let us kick off with the AI content team. They continued to push on new combatant wildline sets, which says will be completed following some integration work. Now these are just referring to what various NPCs say in different locations, like when you're fighting them on foot or in ships. That is essentially what a wildline is. The team also revisited shop behaviors to look for new opportunities to make the population feel more interactive. Just like we see now at medical facilities where NPCs will complain to the staff regarding this ongoing regen crisis. And this, it says, is used to add more lore and flavor. Now, we know that Cloud Imperium are aiming to push the NPCs at locations to be as real as possible, giving that kind of living, breathing world and fleshing out LZs and other areas or points of interest to make it feel real. And a lot of the work going on here, not to mention using NPCs to provide not just lore updates as to whatever is happening on around the verse, but also eventually hint at potential opportunities, like overhearing a conversation at a bar about a lucrative mining spot, for example. Anyway, finally for the AI tech team, they planned for several of their upcoming releases, outlining the required work and what potential obstacles they may need support with to overcome, all the while supporting mission and design teams in implementing additional comm calls into the game. And I must say, having these new comm calls, I really appreciate the fact that we have a face, not just script, well, a face and audio, not just a script to read through. It really helps to just bring it more to life. Now for the AI features team, they continued to develop new creatures, including prototype gameplay for a boss fight, and as part of this, new tech was created to make the process faster and more iterative, providing a better toolkit for the designers. Now, obviously this is good news. Any tools that help to speed up any process while maintaining that level of quality is a good thing, and hopefully this means more creatures of all kinds can make their way out faster. Now, I've never been a big fan of boss fight style gameplay. It always feels so scripted and repetitive, just following this sort of pre-planned set of moves rather than an organic or systemic approach that requires reaction and planning and proper execution. That said though, I am sure it'll be very interesting to see how this flows out, and hopefully if it is regarding something along the lines of, say, the Apex Sandworm, the Valakar, it can still be very organic, very systemic, provided you do what is necessary to draw it out and then take it out using its weaknesses. Now I think it is more the term boss fight that gets to me. As we see in a lot of other games like single player games, I never look forwards to the boss fight. It's always when I put the game down and then have to come back to it weeks later or months later and have to relearn everything right at the part where everything needs to have been put together. But in the Star Citizen universe, it should be organic, it should be systemic, just based on how the game works. So we will see, and I assume this is referring to the Apex Valakar, like what we saw at CitizenCon, but I don't know. Now for human combat, the team fixed numerous smaller bugs and issues, which is always a good thing, plus they added various polish features, including a close-range shove attack that allows the AI to respond rapidly to the player or NPC getting close. Now I quite like the idea of this. It'll feel and look a bit better than both of you just raising your weapons when you're close by. When you get face to face with an opponent, they will push you out the way. Now, the team also continued to tweak, refine, and bug fix perception and investigation when used by group behaviors. Group perception time, it says, is now used to determine how long the target has been out of range rather than the individuals, as well as the time before they time out, go into investigation, and ultimately return to idle was reduced. Now, this all makes sense. NPCs should integrate and communicate between one another as a group if they are working as a group, and not just as individuals reacting on their own, as we see in most games that use group perception like Hitman or Metal Gear Solid. So having them communicate is important and necessary to making it feel and look accurate. Now, progress was also made on the AI weapon interface and dynamic condition weapons. For example, when a weapon changes from rapid fire to single fire after it overheats. Now, this, I'm sure, will require a lot of work because they've got to ensure that the NPCs can handle each weapon and each weapon's various fire states, not to mention the various states after degradation or overheating and so on. Knowing what to do, especially if it misfires, for example. So there's a lot of nuance there to getting the AI or NPCs capable of understanding what is happening with every single weapon. And then finally for the team, they prototyped tech for AI bounding Overwatch, which says it relates to NPCs coordinating to traverse cover when moving to an area. Now, it is good to see that they are putting in more detailed group combat behaviors, NPCs capable of covering each other as they either travel over open land or retreat over large areas of land that don't maybe provide a lot of cover, will make them a lot more threatening and just feel a bit better, and I'm looking forward to seeing this in action. Interestingly though, as mentioned in a previous video, there will be a tech preview test opening up to not just test the main Vulkan API, but also AI FPS behavior integrations. Now, I don't know what that is going to involve, whether it's going to involve things like bounding Overwatches or everything else that they've been working on, or just tech. We will have to wait and see, as that was delayed. So hopefully we get an update on that and we can see it open up for testing, but we'll see. Anyway, next up we have the Game Intelligence Development Team, who continue to work on the prototype for the mission system version 2. Very interesting to see they are already updating the mission system to the next version. Looking forward to hearing what this can now do, what it updates. Still requires a bit of tweaking and bug fixing from, the event that we've just had. But the more they expand this mission system, the more dynamic missions can get and more interesting they can get. The streaming profiler was elaborated on, and it says that this entity component update scheduler is a core system that determines what's in range and provides proximity information for all streaming decisions. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this is about. Sounds like object container stuff, but again, I don't know. They also continue to work on improving StarScript and developed visual prototypes for the density profiler, which pre-visualizes large scenes when there are too many entities. Again, not really too sure what any of this means. It does sound like a tool to aid in performance, but if you do know, do drop it in the comments below. Now, next up we have the AI tech team, who began the month improving navigation, like fixing island connections for the planetary nav mesh, and made link improvements to nav type and metrics. Flags can also now be added to navigate cost areas to prevent NPCs from stopping within them, while updates to the tactical point system to prevent points from generating in areas where NPCs are not allowed to stop. Now, all of this is about improving and expanding on how NPCs, both human, creature I suppose, can traverse across a planet's surface, avoiding obstacles, not cluttering up, and other necessary improvements. For ship AI, updates were made to various movement blocks, while the new flight movement request type was implemented to blend ship movement to splines. Now, splines are just relating to essentially paths that AI ships follow. For example, when it comes into land, when it takes off, having that spline so that it knows where to go. Now, moving on to the animation team, they progressed with a new ship enter and exit template animation, alongside pickup for bespoke gameplay features for an upcoming Persistent Universe release. For the facial animation team, they processed content from June's PCAP shoot, or performance capture shoot, which includes many new mission givers and a mini-boss, interesting, They also worked with narrative to create and finalize animations for various TV broadcast characters that will populate the verse, including Jared's character, James Herriman, which we have seen, I think, in the leaks, the video of this presentation. But really happy to see them creating more characters for news presentations specifically that you can watch in verse. It is really immersive, and it's something they've been wanting to get to for a long while, having that information diegetic inside the game on the TV screens, where as you're walking past you might stop and listen in, rather than it just being on the website all the time. So really happy to see that, and I look forward to seeing that expand even more. Finally, the devs are now back on set with motion capture and narrative to create content for 4.3.1 and future releases. Now, moving on to the character art team, they spent the month creating new armors and armor variants, while the concept art team prepared handoff sheets and began the exploration phase for new flight suits. Oh, Starware when? I just really want Starware in where we can have actual meaningful stats and trade-offs between armors, using them for the specific reason. Not to mention when we get things like FPS radars and scanners, putting bespoke scanners in each helmet type, like mining armors or mining helmets and salvaging helmets and combat helmets, so that there is more reason to storing them and using them. I guess we just need armor lockers first, but yeah, Starware when? Now, for the core gameplay team, as I say, I won't delve too much into the details from them, as I have already done a separate video covering their progress in great detail, so do watch that if you want the deeper information. But for engineering, it says engineering gameplay has entered tech preview preparation, with the devs moving the code into a new staging stream. So, over the moon to finally get word as to where engineering is at, and once this prep has been completed, it should open up to a tech preview channel near you. Now, it also mentions for engineering, they have added the ability to limit the number of active items per pool. Also, thruster temperatures are now visible on the screen, and the iconography between the diagnostics and engineering screens have been unified. Also, the team have added further damage balance modifiers, for example, making fuses on sturdier ships harder to destroy. Plus, diagnostics received filters and item categories to make it easier to identify critical issues. I am desperate to be working as an engineer, just a dedicated engineer, on a big old capital ship, running around, fixing things, putting out fires, swapping things over, running diagnostics. There will be so much to learn, and I am here for it all. Now, for spawning changes, the team have improved the spawning flow, which is allowing for another attempt at spawning players directly into the hangar. Even more interestingly, though, it does say this work paves the way for allowing players to spawn where they were within reason. Now, this is referring to how eventually we won't need beds to log in and out of. We will be able to essentially spawn or log out and log in wherever we are in the verse, again within reason. But that'll just make life so much easier and open the doors to all sorts of stuff like on-foot exploration and so much more. Now, for crafting, it says that the team continued to reevaluate the scope for its first public release, so basically deciding what we, the players, will get when it releases for the first time, whatever state that will be for crafting. Will it include crafting ships for the first iteration, or just specific items like weapons, armors, meds, and equipment? Or will it be much more? Is there going to be a dedicated crafting ship released for it? Or will we be using personal or communal fabricators? Who knows, but hopefully we hear soon. And if it is not before CitizenCon, which it likely isn't going to be unless we get it on a tech preview, it'll most likely be revealed at CitizenCon. Now, for the new inventory UI, which we saw concepts of during Star Citizen Live, it says this has now entered development, with the team doing prep work and setting up the new canvas. I think it was also mentioned it might be UI, saying that it's going to take a bit of time, but we'll get to that in a sec. For hacking gameplay, it says more options were added to help teach players how to use the feature alongside bug fixing. So this tells me that the actual process of hacking must be somewhat ready to come into our hands, as they would not be working on how to teach us how to use it if it was set to change any more or a lot. So most of it, if not all of the work for its core functionality, could be done now. Now, I suspect there is a lot of hacking use cases in Squadron 42, so a lot of it will likely be converting it from a single-player environment into a multiplayer environment, but I do certainly look forward to seeing how this works, how counter-hacking works, how using the ships to hack as well, and it'll all tie into data running too. They have kept this stuff very hidden for a long while now, and I am absolutely ready to see how it's going to function. Now, next up, we have a little snippet relating to quantum travel and the new updated quantum travel mechanics. It simply says the team continue to work on implementing the new mechanics. So not much to go on there. Happy to hear that things are still progressing with quantum travel updates, as they will certainly improve the game massively, but no idea how much is done, how much is left to do, or when we will possibly see it. For FPS radar and scanning, the update says it saw additional progress with further improvements, allowing the designers to define custom scan data. AI can now react to being scanned and respond accordingly, and players will be able to identify if enemy NPCs have a radar equipped and could perceive the player's scanning. So as we know, a small ping scan or scan wave won't be too obvious or detectable, but a larger ping used to reveal more information at a greater distance will, and it could reveal your presence too close by NPCs and eventually players as well, provided they have a radar on them or a way of detecting you on them. So good to know that we will also be able to tell if a player or an NPC has a radar, which will tell us if we need to limit the pinging that we're doing or just not do it altogether. And hopefully one day soon, we can see this whole new signature system and updated radars and scanners for both vehicles and FPS come along, as this is one of my most anticipated features in the short term, because it is going to open up and expand to so many areas of the game, and also open up to things like exploration, bounty hunting, and just keep pushing what we already have. Now finally, we have an update on the transport refactor, and this says that the ongoing refactor continued with additional work for dynamic destinations such as instanced hangars. And basically once the transport refactor is complete, then it's time to work on the social refactor, which includes things like friends, party, VoIP, and org stuff. And as mentioned, if you would like to hear me delve further into the core gameplay features, like engineering, hacking, and everything else mentioned in this section, follow the link to the dedicated video below, as there is much more to be said, but I wanted to keep it shorter here. Now, for the economy team, they are currently analysing the recent poll. They also reviewed engagement metrics for the new content introduced this year, with the aim of balancing it in a way that is both fun and fair. And I'm glad it's not me doing their job, because the economy is such a complex, large-scale thing, but I'm very happy that they are pushing on making it make sense to the whole verse. They're also trying to make the game more accessible, with the team adding ammunition from the most used FPS weapons to more shops in the verse. However, the ammo for the more special and rarer weapons will still remain exclusive and lootable. Now next up, we have the mission design team. They have spent time monitoring the resource drive event to see how players interacted with it, plus fixed small exploits and helped to fix the mission generation system. And I'm pretty certain with the amount of problems that the resource drive saw when it first dropped and still got ongoing, I suspect they have gathered a lot of very useful information in many areas, as it has been a mess for so long, and also revealed a lot of behaviours from players that should help them to figure out better ways and means of providing in-game security measures where necessary that might be required in the future. Now, the mission design team also looked at old locations that weren't included in the 4.0 refactor and don't currently have missions associated with them, and once they finish their work on this, we will then start to see existing combat missions begin to take us to these locations. Now, I hope they will also use these other locations for all manner of missions, not just combat missions, but FOBs, derelicts, settlements, and everything else. Hopefully we can see all of these location points of interest that we currently have get more missions hooked into them, maybe even just passive missions of NPCs requesting things. Maybe not every location, it's still nice to have some spots that are free from missions, but there are so many that could be hooked into it. And then finally, for the mission design team, they supported 4.3 deliverables by creating missions that encourage players to engage with new content. Recolo also received new missions and new cosmetics, more balancing tweaks, and work began on the Accept mission in World system. Now, this last bit is quite interesting and is relating to mission pickup on location. Could be a 4.3.1 edition, this one, because we haven't seen any work on this on the PTU yet. But this new mission is basically discovering and accepting missions in specific locations where you are. So your proximity to a location will determine whether a mission pops up or not, rather than just having them available on your MOBIGLASS. Now, I do hope that this leads to rolling out more location-specific missions, especially at places like settlements. Having a mission to go and fix something, for example, like we see in Pyro, or maybe even retrieve a box and bring it back somewhere. Just simple missions that keep us going and entertained at locations for long durations of time, as they have stated in the past, will be so nice. Now, moving on to the narrative team, they got deeply involved into 4.3, it says, getting it ready to release by refining and tweaking mission text, objectives, UI screens, and branding to deliver a cohesive narrative experience at the new location. Now, I think this is referring to the Onyx facilities, and I will say they are extremely well made. The visuals, the sort of flow inside, the sound, the lighting, the interesting sections and Easter eggs, not to mention just how big they are. They really feel like they have been put together well, like any other AAA game, so I'm happy to see the team really working together and expanding on these places. The team also crafted mission text and placeholder scripts for several gameplay scenarios that will be introduced later this year, and it is actually great, personally, seeing a lot more focus on smoothing out and putting out more missions. I think the biggest benefit here, for myself anyway, as I'm not too bothered about doing crafted missions. I much prefer the organic side of things and just the natural occurrences that happen. But for me, these missions give players more things to do, so encouraging players to actually play first and foremost, but also spreading people out more so that as you come across a location, just organically, there's something there. Something interesting may have happened, and you can scavenge things and loot things. Much prefer that. Oh, and this next sentence is very interesting, and thank you to Flood for bringing this to my attention, but it says, for the narrative team, they began filling in additional details for an upcoming location, honing specifics to help further guide art and design as they populate it with locations and gameplay. Now, I missed this at first until one of my community members, Flood, mentioned it, but it sounds like they could be referring to the Nyx system, as it says, filling in additional detail for an upcoming location as they populate it with locations and gameplay. So it's not a singular location or point of interest, but a place that is large enough to have lots of locations and gameplay within it. And I do absolutely feel like this is referring to the next system to arrive being the Nyx system. Now, this might be referring to something completely different, but I get the same impression after rereading that. And no idea when we will see this. This year would be mind-blowing if they could bring out a new system, but I'm just not sold on that yet. I feel like it might be more of a next year thing. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. What do you think? And then finally, for the narrative team, it says they also crafted lore for a new ship seller, who the narrative team hopes will be a fun addition to the burst. Now, of course, we have no idea exactly who this is going to be. Will it be like what we have with Astro Armada or New Deal? Will it be a new ship dealer? Will it be an individual seller? Will they be offering legal or illegal ship sales? Will they have second-hand ships? Will it be a place where we can sell our in-game bought or salvaged ships to? Or even get them claimed as our own, get the rights to them? I know all of these things Cloud Imperium want for the verse, and I've spoken about a lot actually at CitizenCon, but it brings up more questions than answers. So hopefully we hear more about this, as I would love a place to buy second-hand ships or trade in my old ones. Now next we have the online tech team, and a lot of what we read about here is referring to crafting and getting all the back-end tech working so that the crafting mechanic can actually work. So firstly, they improved how developers report bugs through the crash handler, making it more reliable. It also supports a wider range of use cases to help catch and resolve issues faster than ever. That isn't anything to do with crafting, but it is definitely a benefit. The online services team worked on the Stow Context API and supported missions on both the server and game sides, plus tasks for the Blueprint library began, with API development planned for August, so this month, and finally the team continued their work and discussions on Item Imprint version 1. Now again, this is all relating to crafting, so very excited to see that they are getting the back-end work done to make crafting possible. Next, we have the R&D team, who say their focus has exclusively shifted to analysing performance and optimising the engine and game code, which will be their primary focus for the foreseeable. Now, let me read that again, as seeing the R&D team shift over from working on clouds and volumetric clouds to actual performance and optimizing is music to my ears. It says this team's focus has exclusively shifted to analysing performance and optimizing the engine and game code, which will be their primary focus for the foreseeable future. So really happy to see this team now shift to optimizing and improving performance. And I reckon with it being R&D, they will be able to do so much to help push the performance and optimization in Star Citizen. And hopefully this means a lot more optimizations to come, and likely why we are now seeing the Vulcan Tech preview test on its way, helping to allow for more optimizations and so forth. So really happy to see that statement. For the UI team, they supported the upcoming gameplay event, contributing more interactive and environmental screens than ever before, and we do see a lot of UI around the ASD Onyx facilities. There's so many different panels and things to interact with, so they must have had their work full. The UI team also started work on this new inventory UI that we saw on Star Citizen Live, with the team saying it's a complex UI that covers several things for future gameplay, so we'll be working on it for a while. So, as mentioned, great to see them kicking this stuff off, but it could be a little while before we get it in the game. And then finally, for the UI team, they have crafted the dashboard UI and MFD UI for an upcoming vehicle, which has several unique features. Now, I assume this is referring to the Kruger L-21 Wolf, which is to release in 4.3. Really excited to see this ship. It might be my go-to light fighter for the foreseeable. Not a massive fan of bespoke weaponry that can't be swapped out, but I'm sure as more things roll out, like Maelstrom, the physical damage system, engineering, bullet penetration, armor, and all these other things that really push more reason to use specific ships or specific weapons over others, it is going to come into its own. And just the classic car design, oh, it's beautiful. Anyway, finally we have the VFX team, which says their main focus was 4.3, including the new locations, bespoke events, vehicles, and weapons, plus they are prepping for 4.3.1 as related tasks start to arrive. But there you go, quite a chonky report this month with tons of very exciting updates around all things Star Citizen. Very much looking forward to seeing all of this stuff roll into the verse, even though I'm sure a lot of it is still a bit of a way off. Many of these gameplay features that are coming to fruition, they sound like they're actually coming to the end of their development cycle. I suspect we will start seeing them get pushed out to tech preview channels throughout the latter half of this year and likely into next year, before coming even close to live. But it is all moving in the right direction. Tech preview will start with this Vulcan and FPS AI stuff, and then from there, hopefully we can see engineering roll out. Ooh, very excited. Anyway, if you are buying anything from the IMPOUND, please do consider using my link, as this will not just get you 5% off, but also provide my channel with a direct kickback, helping to support my videos. A huge thank you to everyone who has used it so far. It is very much appreciated. It really helps the channel out, so thank you so much. With that said though, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Do by all means follow me here on YouTube and watch while I'm live, or check out my Twitch channel. It is twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome. Great place to ask questions or just hang out with like-minded players. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.